Hello everyone. Thank you for coming back to my channel. In recent days, we've been witnessing an intense and dramatic situation as little Henry Tuna's son was suddenly kidnapped by none other than Tuna's ex-mother-in-law. This isn't just a serious case, but one that has left many feeling heartbroken and worried about the fate of the child. The incident unfolded so quickly that Tu Nha, as well as all of us, were caught off guard. Immediately, the police got involved, launching an investigation and taking measures to track down the cunning ex-mother-in-law. However, the big question now is whether they will be able to find any trace of little Henry and rescue him in time. Every passing hour brings more tension and fear as we still don't know the child's condition in the hands of the kidnapper. But don't worry, because we'll take you through the latest footage where every second is filled with suspense, bringing us closer to the truth. Will the police uncover a lead, or will the ex-mother-in-law continue to evade capture? Rest assured, the upcoming plot twists will not disappoint you. Stay tuned for the next developments, where each dramatic moment will keep you on the edge of your seat. This is a story you can't miss, and I promise you won't be able to take your eyes off the screen. Don't forget to follow and share so you won't miss any updates. Alex had just put down the phone, his heart pounding violently. The trembling voice of Tu Nha still echoed in his mind. "I'm so scared." Without a second of hesitation, he rushed out of the house, consumed by a single thought. He had to be by her side. He had to help her through this terrifying moment. When he finally found Tu Nha, her face was pale, her eyes red and swollen, as if she had endured a devastating shock. Alex took her hand firmly, his gaze steady and full of resolve. "Don't worry, we won't face this alone. I'll take you to the authorities right away. Only the police can help us uncover the truth." Tu Nha nodded, her voice trembling. "Yes, let's go now." Not wasting a second, Alex called the police in advance, briefly explaining the situation so they would be ready to receive them. His decisiveness gave Tu Nha a sliver of reassurance, yet unease still flickered in her eyes like danger could strike at any moment. On the way to the station, the atmosphere in the car was heavy. Street lights flickered past, casting fleeting patches of light and shadow across their faces. Tu Nha stayed silent, her cold hands clenching the edge of her clothes. Alex gently placed a hand on her shoulder, speaking in a low, steady tone. "Everything will be all right. We have to believe in justice." As soon as their car stopped in front of the station, two officers were already waiting. Dressed in crisp uniforms, their sharp gazes added to the air of urgency. One of them stepped forward and said briefly, "We've been informed of the situation. Please come inside. We'll begin immediately." Inside the office, the harsh fluorescent lights illuminated the wooden desk. The only sounds were the scratch of pens and the quick shuffle of papers. Nervously, Tu Nha recounted everything detail by detail. At times, her voice faltered, her hands trembling uncontrollably. Alex sat beside her, listening intently. Filling in the gaps, she missed his calm presence, a solid anchor for her fragile state. The officers took notes carefully, their expressions focused. After hearing the full account, one of them spoke in a firm, reassuring voice. "The information you've provided is critical. We'll file a report and launch a full investigation. Rest assured this matter will not be ignored." Hearing those words, Tu Nha felt as if a weight had been lifted from her chest. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but this time they were tears of relief. Alex squeezed her hand gently and offered a faint smile, a smile filled with determination. Outside, the night remained dark and suffocating. Yet within their hearts, a spark of light began to flicker, the light of truth, the light of justice. And in that very moment, both Alex and Tu Nha understood that the road ahead would be full of trials. But at least, they would no longer face it alone. Inside the stark interrogation room, the atmosphere was so heavy that even the sound of breathing seemed amplified. Tu Nha and Alex sat opposite the police officer. Tu Nha's hands clenched tightly together, while Alex tried to keep his composure, determined to support her. Both of them recounted the entire sequence of events, from the subtle signs of unease to the horrifying moment when they discovered Henry was gone. The officer listened attentively, his sharp eyes studying their every movement. When the story came to a pause, he leaned forward slightly, his voice calm but firm. "Tell me, have you recently made any enemies? Anyone you might have had a conflict with?" Tu Nha froze for a moment, then shook her head. "No. Since moving here, I've lived quietly. I've never quarreled or had any disputes with anyone." The officer pressed on. "What about Mrs. Tang? I understand you often leave your child in her care." Tu Nha quickly answered her tone, resolute. "Yes, Mrs. Tang has always been very kind to me. I regularly ask her to watch Henry. There's no way she would take him away without telling me." The room fell into silence. Tu Nha lowered her gaze, straining her memory. Suddenly, her eyes widened, as though she had unearthed an overlooked detail. She lifted her head sharply, exhaling. "Wait. I just remembered. My former mother-in-law has been coming around lately. She demanded to see Henry." Alex immediately interjected, his voice edged with anger. "Could it be her? Could she have kidnapped Henry?" Tu Nha swallowed hard, her words trembling. "She came again today. She insisted on seeing Henry, but I refused and forced her to leave. After she was gone, I left for work. When I came back, my son had disappeared." The officer nodded slowly, his eyes narrowing in thought. He set his pen down, leaned back in his chair, and spoke with deliberate gravity. "If what you say is accurate, then she is very likely our prime suspect in this case." The tension in the room tightened like a vice. Tu Nha felt her heart constrict painfully, while Alex reached for her hand, trying to steady her. The realization that the chief suspect could be someone tied to Henry by blood sent a chill through both of them. The officer resumed taking notes, his tone unwavering. "We will immediately investigate her whereabouts and movements. If she's involved, rest assured, we will uncover the truth." The harsh ceiling lights cast a cold glow over their anxious faces. Inside, Tu Nha fear swirled with a fragile thread of hope. Because no matter how cruel the truth might be, at least now, the searchlight of justice had begun to pierce through the darkness surrounding Henry's mysterious disappearance. Alex immediately informed the police of an address where he had once met Mrs. Diu before. Without delay, the group set out together, tension weighing heavily over every mile they traveled. For Tu Nha, each passing minute felt like an hour, her heart pounding, as if Henry might be just within reach, waiting to be found. After a long drive, they finally arrived at an old house. Its faded gray walls and moss-covered roof exuded an air of abandonment. On the porch sat a middle-aged man, leaning back in a wooden chair with a distant gaze. Alex approached him politely and asked, "Good evening, sir. May I ask, is Mrs. Diu here?" The man shook his head, slowly replying curtly, "No." A few days ago, someone came and took her away. I don't know where she went." Alex suppressed a sigh of disappointment and nodded. "I see. Thank you. Do you happen to know where she might have moved to?" The man raised his hands in resignation and answered, "I don't." "She left in a hurry, without leaving any trace." The group exchanged uneasy glances. What had seemed like a solid lead suddenly dissolved into a dead end. The police officer looked at his colleagues, gave a slight nod, and motioned for them to withdraw. Alex turned toward Tu Nha and caught the pale look on her face. Her lips pressed so tightly together that a bead of blood had formed. The ride back was filled with silence, heavy and suffocating. Then, just as they approached the outskirts of the city, Tu Nha suddenly sat upright, her voice raw and urgent. "Wait. I remember now. She might have gone back to her old house. That place. It was like a living hell for me when I stayed with my husband's family." The car fell quiet once more, but this time with a different intensity. The officer turned sharply toward her, his eyes glinting with resolve. "If that's true, then that's our next destination. Lead the way." We leave now. No one hesitated. The car veered off onto a side road, speeding toward the isolated outskirts. Tu Nha gazed out the window, the scenery becoming increasingly familiar. Every corner, every row of trees along the roadside brought back haunting memories of her past. The humiliations, the sorrows, the years of suffering that had scarred her deeply. A cold night wind slipped in through the cracks of the window, brushing her skin like icy fingers. Alex quietly reached over, clasping her hand tightly. He whispered, "Don't be afraid. No matter what happens, I'll be right here with you." Tu Nha's eyes brimmed with tears, yet beneath the sorrow flickered an unexpected strength. She knew she could only reclaim her child by facing this shadowed past head-on. The road ahead was not just leading them to Mrs. Jew's old house, it was leading Tu Nha back into the heart of her deepest wounds. The car's wheels hummed against the asphalt, the sound of the engine echoing into the thick night. Everyone inside understood what awaited them at the end of this road could be the key to unveiling the truth, or the beginning of a new and imminent danger. The car pulled up in front of an old house tucked away in a narrow alley. The golden glow of dusk spread across the sky, while strips of shadow slowly crept over the ground. Tu Nha stepped out her pace, faltering, her eyes clouded with unease. Before her stood the house that had once been etched into her memory as a place of pain, the prison of her darkest years. The air itself seemed to carry the weight of the past pressing heavily against her chest. She stood there, motionless, hands clenched, breath shallow and quick. Alex, sensing her fear, walked to her side, placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, and whispered, "It's all right. I'm here with you." His voice was gentle, yet steady, a lifeline pulling her away from the grip of dread. Tu Nha exhaled shakily, gathered her courage, and nodded. With Alex at her side, she stepped cautiously into the small yard. Her voice rang out thin, but determined. "Is anyone home?" The creaking of wood echoed as the door opened. A middle-aged man appeared, his expression calm, though tinged with curiosity. Tu Nha quickly approached her tone, urgent. "Sir, may I ask, is Mrs. Jew here?" The man frowned, shaking his head. "No, miss. I don't know anyone by that name." Tu Nha's eyes widened. "But this used to be her house." The man sighed and answered firmly, "I bought this place a long time ago. I truly have no idea who she is." Without another word, he turned and closed the door behind him. The heavy thud of the door reverberated through the air, leaving behind an oppressive silence. Tu Nha froze where she stood, the sting of disappointment mixing with the haunting ache of old wounds. Alex quickly grasped her hand, urging her away. The officer beside them gave a solemn nod, his eyes thoughtful, though shadowed by doubt. Once again, the lead they had hoped for slipped into nothingness. They returned to the car, weighed down by frustration. Darkness was falling quickly, streetlights flickering on one by one, spilling weak pools of light onto the ground. No one spoke. Only the steady hum of the engine filled the tense silence. Near the city, one of the officers finally broke the quiet, his voice low but resolute. "It's getting late. We'll return to the station and work out a new plan. This case is more complicated than we anticipated," his partner added. "For now, you both should go home and rest. Tonight we'll expand our search." Tu Nha nodded, gratitude and worry tangled in her chest. Alex thanked the officers on their behalf, then guided her back to their car. They watched as the police vehicle disappeared into the night, leaving behind a quiet that seemed even heavier than before. On the drive home, Tu Nha leaned her head against the window, her gaze distant, unfocused. The blur of passing headlights and sparse traffic felt like shadows drifting aimlessly. Alex gripped the steering wheel firmly, glancing at her from time to time. Words rose to his lips, but died away, until finally he reached over and took her cold hand in his. "I promise we'll find Henry. No matter how far we have to go, I won't give up." His voice, steady with conviction, pierced through her despair. Tu Nha turned to look at him, her eyes brimming with tears, yet glimmering with the faintest spark of hope. The night outside remained dark, but within her heart, something fragile and luminous stirred. Though the road ahead was uncertain, at least she wasn't alone. And in that fragile moment, the strength of love and the belief in justice quietly lit the path forward.
Tôi cảm thấy lòng mình nhẹ nhõm. Thay vì vội vàng quay về nhà như thường lệ, tôi quyết định tự thưởng cho bản thân một thứ gì đó. Bước chân tôi dừng lại một quầy quần áo, nơi những chiếc áo mới đủ sắc màu treo lấp lánh dưới ánh sáng của ánh nắng buổi trưa. Tôi chợt nghĩ đã lâu rồi mình chưa mua cho bản thân một món đồ nào. Có lẽ bây giờ nên thay đổi, để khi đi làm nhìn tươi tắn, tự tin hơn. Thế là tự Na bắt đầu ngắm nghía, vuốt ve từng mớ thớ vải, tưởng tượng mình trong dáng vẻ tươi mới hơn. Rời quầy quần áo người lớn, tự Na bắt đầu bước vào khu quần áo trẻ em. Nhìn những bộ đồ nhỏ xinh được treo ngay ngắn, trong lòng tôi đã dâng lên những niềm yêu thương, nhớ Henry, con trai bé bỏng của tôi. Tôi bắt đầu lựa chọn từng chiếc áo, từng chiếc quần, vừa lựa vừa hình dung gương mặt rạng rỡ khi con được mặc những bộ quần áo mới đó. Có lẽ niềm vui của Con chính là phần thưởng quý giá nhất dành cho tôi